Welcome back to Chronicle. This morning, we're talking about the U.S. Senate races up for grabs in Nebraska. There are two of them. Senator Pete Ricketts was appointed to a spot left vacant by Ben Sasse. Now Ricketts wants to stay in Washington, but he has a challenger. Preston Love is a social activist in North Omaha, well known in the community for his effort to get people of color to vote. But he's battling not only a well-funded Pete Ricketts, but also high Republican voter registration. So I asked him plainly, can he win?
One of my strong feelings is that the privilege of money is what's not good for politics, and that we actually end up candidates with too much money actually use the privilege over the people and the politics over the people. And so I do see it as a great disadvantage. I'm not able to buy ads on TV. I'm not yet able even to put as many people, paid workers, if you will, on the floor. But we have tapped into something, and I'd like to summarize it if I could. And that is, Rob, that there needs to be in Nebraska, I'm not talking generically, I'm talking about in Nebraska, where we have one party that rules. All of our congressional delegation, all of our House members, all of our senators, our governor, our legislature is predominantly Republican. That one-party rule it does not work well for the rest of for all of the state. And so, and then if you add to it a lot of money to manipulate things, it just doesn't work well. And what I'm saying is a reflection of what I heard as I traveled the state.
What do you see as the biggest threat facing the country right now?
Oh, I think our divisiveness internally. I think our divisiveness primarily by party, and I would add to that hate, and those who are pimping our divisiveness to disrupt our country, who don't care about our country and really want to destroy democracy. I see that as our biggest problem.
You know, you mentioned the Mideast. Do you support, we saw the attacks, do you support sending U.S. troops in there?
Into
the Mideast, into Gaza, to get involved?
I don't. I do, but you know, in a funny kind of way, we've already committed our hardware and money. I surely support that. I support it, but I'm very, my support comes with asterisks, and that is, I think that we need to use the power of the United States to get the war stopped, get the few hostages that are still remaining, and to stop the carnage. People are dying. Well, and I don't feel comfortable taking the side of Israel any more than I do the other side.
You lead a Black Votes Matter youth history tour across the country. You also have the North Omaha Legacy Tour. These tours look at history, the struggles of the African-American community. You're a man of a certain age. Your experience, as am I, your experience when looking at our political spectrum. Are we getting better?
Yes, we are getting better, but while we're getting better, we're also, as I mentioned, I see the division. See, and that pops up in so many ways. I'm teaching youth, and now a lot of adults on my tours of locality as well as the nation. I'm teaching, I'm a university professor at UNO. My kids don't know history, black history or other history, with a few exceptions, the ones in the history department. But so I do those tours out of necessity, and so we have to create some civic knowledge, some commitment to country, volunteerism. We got to spend time. And so we have the potential of being better, but if we don't pay attention to some of the details, it's going to get out of our hands. And that's why some of us are doing things rather than trying to make money so I could have more money in my campaign or some other fund, is that we have to volunteer ourselves. Yeah, we have to step up.
What do you want then finally? What do you want from your Senate campaign?
What I want is what I'm going to get.
Okay.
And let me put it that way, because I'm either going to win or lose. But either way, I'm going to win because I will have had the chance, even using this interview as an example, to voice use my voice and my perspective on the issues that would never maybe be heard in a state that's such a one-party rule. You would only hear it from one side. That is a success. I'm victorious already.
As we mentioned, Senator Pete Ricketts has held the seat since Ben Sasse left in January of 2023. Now he wants to keep serving the rest of that term. To do it, though, the former Nebraska governor needs to win your vote, and he told me that he's taking nothing for granted.
Well, every campaign, you've got to go out there and earn it. You've got to earn the votes of Nebraska voters, and that's what I've done in every campaign that I've run, and that's what I'm doing in this campaign. So I'm going to continue to travel the state. I've done a number of briefings on border briefings about the disaster that's going on at our southern border, how the Biden-Harris administration has opened our borders and put us all at risk. I've done a number of briefings on federal spending to help people understand about the level of debt that we're taking on. That, you know, it's $266,000 per household. It's like every Nebraska family having a second mortgage. We've got to get this under control. And frankly, it's been Senate Democrats that, like Chuck Schumer, that have broken the process there. That is one of the reasons why our spending is out of control. So we're going out there and earning it. I'm going to go continue to take my case to the voters, and that's what you do to be able to get elected in the state of Nebraska.
We've all heard about the battle for the blue dot here in the 2nd District in the presidential race. Are you working against the blue dot, or are you just going to let that do what it is?
Well, as governor, we worked every year to be able to get winner take all in the state of Nebraska. I believe Nebraskans speak with a unified voice, and that's what we should go back to. We usually fell 1 or 2 votes short of being able to get that accomplished, but I think it's something we should continue to focus on trying to get done in the Nebraska legislature. We weren't able to get done. They still don't have the votes right now, but we should make that as a long-term goal.
First question in the presidential debate was, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? How do you answer that question?
I think it's pretty clear that people are not better off now, that they're worse off. In fact, Biden's own IRS says that Americans are 4% poorer today than before he took office. And we can see it, right? Go to the grocery store. Prices are up over 20%. Gas prices are up. Electricity prices are up like 31%, right? People know they're paying more today to have the same standard of living that they had before Joe Biden came into office. In fact, it's $13,000 more today that your average family is paying just to have the same standard of living they had before Joe Biden came into office. And Kamala Harris would be more of the same.
How about you? How about Pete Ricketts? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago, personally?
Well, I got to tell you that I feel the same pain everybody else does when I go to the pump to fill up my car, right? It's more expensive. You see it going to the grocery store, right? So everybody is feeling the effects of this inflation.
What is the biggest threat facing the country?
There are 2 big threats that are facing our nation in the long term. Domestically, it's our federal debt. At $35 trillion, I've already mentioned it's $266,000 per household. It's like every Nebraska family having a second mortgage. And this year, our interest payments are going to be $892 billion. It's the 2nd biggest line item in our federal budget after Social Security, bigger than defense. And it's the fastest growing at 137%. So we need to get our spending under control. And the step to start doing that is getting back to a regular process where we pass 12 appropriations bills and have the ability to offer amendments on it. Chuck Schumer has broken that process. Last year, all those bills came out of our Appropriations Committee in the U.S. Senate, and he didn't bring them up until after the end of the fiscal year. We got to get back to a regular process to allow senators to be able to weigh in on this spending. The second biggest threat that we have to our country is the People's Republic of China.
Is there anything you won't compromise on?
Well, there are principles that I have that I won't compromise on. What you try to do is try to make sure that you find common ground with people to find areas where you can work.
What are the principles you won't?
Well, for example, I'm one of the people that absolutely believes that we have too much spending in D.C. right now. We need to start taking that spending down. We need to make sure that we've got a strong national defense, that we support law enforcement. You know, these are the sort of things that we got to make sure that we're generally doing to be able to make sure we've got a strong and prosperous country.
What do you consider your biggest accomplishment so far?
Well, so far we've been able to pass some bills to be able to, for example, the Kids Online Safety Act, to be able to get that passed, get more transparency about what's going on at the southern border. We've also passed bills to be able to, for example, improve the passport process, to be able to get that done. So there's been a number of things around good government we've been able to get done. We obviously have a lot more opportunity to be able to bring the things that we did well here in Nebraska and bring them to Washington, D.C. so the rest of the country can benefit.
Your opponent wanted to debate you. Why won't you debate him?
I've been taking my case straight to the people of Nebraska. I've been traveling around the state, talking to folks, again, doing the border briefings, federal spending briefings, doing events to be able to talk to folks directly about why I should be senator for the next 2 years.
I still had some reminders if you're planning to vote early by mail or if you're waiting to cast your ballot on Election Day. It's coming up next.